Hello.
Hello, Kiriti.
Hello,
Hello.
Vinita ji.
Hello. Am I
How are you
audible?
doing?
All good.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
perfectly fine.
Okay. I'm fine. Thank you, Kiriti. How are you?
How is Bombay? We are
Bombay.
good. Like, we are almost 3 months old in Delhi, and
Right.
now Delhi is really, it's chilly. Like
Oh,
everything is frozen.
I know Delhi winters are absolutely brutal. Unfortunately, we don't have a winter in
Yeah,
Bombay, although it's become slightly nice and cool in the
right.
mornings and evenings. Yeah.
Yeah, in that sense, you like the Bombay people, they are blessed.
Well, I think, it's important to have a good winter also.
Yeah.
That's what
Like
climate
every
analysts say.
season has,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely every season has its benefits. Yeah.
Yes. And it's very important for the
Uh,
for the overall balance of all animal and plant
Perfect.
life. Yeah.
Right. Right. So, as Hawakal, our publisher, goes live on their Facebook profile,
Right.
like let us get ready for this grilling session.
I'm looking forward to it,
So,
Kiriti.
Vinita ji, like this is your question paper for today's evening. It's
Excellent,
pretty
excellent.
long. Yeah,
No
but don't
problem.
get nervous. Like it's not an examination, and no one is going to give you any number. So,
I
like,
know.
it's so like
No, I'm
I
looking
would like to
forward
ask.
to this. Yeah.
uh, Perfect. So, Bitan, are we live? Yeah, we are live.
Okay.
So, friends, ladies and gentlemen, I am Kiriti Sengupta. Currently, I am in the Delhi office of Hawakal Publishers, which is otherwise known as Grains. And today's evening, we have a book to discuss. We have a very special collection of poems and prose. It's called Open Your Eyes. This is an anthology on climate change, and this unique collection has been edited by none other than the award winning poet from Bombay. She is Vinita Agrawal. Vinita ji, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiriti. Actually, equal congratulations to you too. You're my publisher and you brought out this
Thank you so
extremely
much.
wonderful. Yeah.
And we should take this opportunity, Vinita ji, to congratulate and to thank all the contributing
Yes,
writers of this
absolutely.
collection.
Yes.
This is indeed a unique collection, probably the first of its kind from India,
Yeah.
like the first of its kind
Yes.
published from India,
That's true.
which
That's
is
true.
focused on climate change. If I'm not right, if I'm not wrong technically. So this is the first published collection, a literary collection on climate change from India. Am I right?
That's correct. That's correct. I'm sure
Thank
there
you.
will be many more, and there should be many more because
Of
this
course,
issue
of
needs
course.
to be addressed. But as of now, I believe, yeah, this is the first one from India. And this
Right.
book belongs to all its contributors. It belongs to
Of
everybody
course,
who's,
without any doubt.
yeah, absolutely.
Vinita ji, my first question to you, like as the question paper goes, no, the question paper said by Kiriti Sengupta and Hawakal Publishers. So
Great.
as the question paper reads,
Yeah.
my first question to you like is when and how you conceived the concept that went behind curating this unique collection, which is primarily based on climate change. When and how you conceived.
Yeah, Kiriti, there are two parts to this answer, and I'm going to begin. Because this book essentially, I think, subconsciously and elementally was conceived, and I was very very young. I was almost about 5 or 6 years old when I was
Mhm.
constantly collecting stones, shells. Just going through sand mounds and collecting all the shells I could find, collecting all the dry leaves I could find, being in tune with nature at every step of my life. And I think somewhere
Yeah.
or the other, this book was born right then. But in effect and factually speaking, this book actually came about when there's this very wonderful cultural space in Bombay. It's called G5A.
Mm-hmm.
And they had asked me to put together a small collection of about 10 poems on climate change.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to publish it in their, I think they were having an e-zine, a digital magazine of G5A. So when I
Okay.
set about doing this, I was completely intrigued with this kind of poetry, and I would like to call it eco poetry. I think it's a good
Mm-hmm.
phrase.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very, very intrigued, and it just resonated with me immensely. And I found that it was like second nature to me to be able to look at it, read it, to refine it, and to
Mm-hmm.
identify with it. And I found so many of my internal commitments being showcased through this kind of poetry. So I decided to do it full length and bring it out like an anthology. And that's how essentially the book was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, so, Vinita ji, this book, Open Your Eyes, this is primarily or basically a literary collection. And you have handpicked, the pieces for the book.
Right.
Fortunately or unfortunately, there has been no open call for submission. So, was this a conscious decision on your part?
Oh, it was very deliberate. Absolutely. And let
Okay,
me tell you the
okay.
reason why. Let me tell you the
Hmm.
reason why. You see, poetry is a small community. Almost
Yeah,
all of us know each other.
perfect.
So, so there were two reasons why I didn't send out an open call for submission. The first was that I didn't want to have a bulk of reading material with me, and I would be just wading through it. And I was, as you know, I was doing
Yeah.
this singly. It was a personal project, so I
Uh-huh.
didn't want that kind of bulk to collect. And
Yeah.
secondly, sometimes you may not like a particular piece, and then when you reject it or send out a letter of rejection, then it's not always taken very elegantly. And I didn't want to create any sort
Yeah,
of
yeah.
bad blood in this small but wonderful poetry community. So I
Right.
thought I would just solicit all my entries.
Okay. So it was an entirely solicited thing, like an
That's
affair.
correct. Yes.
Vinita ji, what is this bad uh, blood? Like, what happens when, you have been editing for quite some time now, and
Yes.
like the same thing here with me. I have been editing anthologies for since 2014, so
Yes.
like more than 6 years.
Right.
I can tell you, it's never an easy job being an editor. The
Absolutely.
moment, yeah, the moment you accept a piece, you are an amazing editor. The moment you decline a piece, you become a monster, right?
So
And
Kiriti, now
especially,
you are
especially
deviating
they,
from your question paper.
no,
I
no,
don't think
not at
this.
all. No, 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 no. Yeah, let me just finish this brief. No, uh, we need interludes. Otherwise, if we carry on talking about open your eyes, I admit that we are primarily focused on the book, Open Your Eyes. But
Right.
then any conversation, if it happens only on the topic or about the topic, the conversation becomes dry and you lose audience. And we essentially have to create some juice out of this conversation. You give anything, this book has some literary juice, which is very profound. Everywhere, everybody wants some juice. The
Yeah.
moment an editor declines a submission,
Mm.
he or she becomes a monster. It happened with you, it happens with me, it happened with me, it happens with every other editor.
Mm.
So, my next question to you, like not out of the topic, on the topic, is the contributing writers, Vinita ji, have shared their takes on climate change through their writings. The motto is to create an awareness. What, according to you, What, according to you, is the easiest way of influencing public toward a greener earth? Is it literature or is it public awareness campaign?
Well, it has to be a blend of both. I mean, since we are
Okay.
writers and here we are poets and authors,
Mhm.
so in our case, it definitely has to be a blend of both. First of all,
Okay.
we are citizens of planet Earth. So we have to
Mhm.
live wisely, we have to live consciously, we have to act with awareness. But
Mhm.
that also has to be reflected in our writing,
Of
because
course.
writing about it creates a sensitivity to the issue. You know, people sometimes will assimilate that fact and that particular issue, the urgency of it, and where they are going wrong, and how deeply it pains some readers to think of, you know, animals going extinct, trees being
Right.
felled. So I
Right.
think the literature has a great impact, but at the same time, literature is not the vehicle for action, right?
Perfect.
It creates an awareness and it
Mhm.
sensitizes you, but ultimately you have to come out on the streets and do your bit and live a very thoughtful life, and you have to be very aware of how you're living, not damaging the planet, with minimum damage to the planet. So all that has to be accompanied with action. So I think literature and action go hand in hand, and as
Uh,
writers we have a
yeah.
responsibility in both directions.
Yeah, perfectly said, Vinitaji. Literature, like any other medium,
Yeah,
it informs, it motivates, and it
correct.
guides people into action. So,
That's right.
informing, motivating,
Yes,
and guiding one into action. These
right,
three objectives can be achieved through
right.
good literature. And of course,
Absolutely.
it goes without saying that Open Your Eyes is is a solid example of solid and profound literature.
That is true.
Uh,
It's got
yeah,
some exemplary.
Vinitaji, did you or could you make Open Your Eyes an adjunct to any of the recent public awareness campaigns?
The process is on actually,
Okay,
and
okay.
I've been in conversation with certain media, you know, media agencies like the New Indian Express and First Post, and
Uh-huh.
also other places where it's not been a movement. So I mean, it's not been a kind of a movement, but
Hmm.
they've been writing about it, and that's been gaining bandwidth for the anthology. But here I
Perfect.
have to share a very interesting anecdote that happened just a week ago. So there are
Uh-huh.
these two very young girls in Hong Kong who
Hmm.
are uh, who are very active climate change workers. You know, they clean up the beaches and they stand in malls and public places and talk about it. And their parents encourage them to do this thing. So somehow they came to know about this anthology, and their mother, I think, helped them to sort of reach out to me. So we had a
Yeah.
Zoom call. We had a Zoom call with. I had a conversation with these two young girls who are maybe the future, activists of tomorrow. Who knows? And they
Hmm.
were incredibly inspired by this anthology. And I told them that this is not the imagery is not something that you might be able to connect with, because in terms of language, it hasn't been written for children. And yet
Right.
they're organizing a few contests where they're keeping this book as the prize. And I found that really heartwarming, and it was incredible how this book has reached such spaces, you know, where it's been.
Yeah, this is an outstanding feat. Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah. And I'm also in talk with a few agencies to keep this book as a prize for certain literary contests and things like that,
Uh-huh.
because this
Okay.
book should be read by as many people as possible.
Okay. So Vinitaji, as you received and gathered all the writings from different writers and poets across the globe, did you have a poem or two, or did you have any writing or two, like a piece or two, where you had to do major editing?
Oh, that's a very funny story, actually.
Yeah,
So
please share.
yeah, so almost 90% of the book was very well, I mean, submitted. All the submissions I got were very beautifully edited, and there was
Mhm.
very little work that I had to do. But there were two pieces which had to be edited very profoundly, and I
Okay.
don't think if I mention them, the two writers and the two poets will mind. One was the piece by Longbir Terang. So he's a
Yeah.
writer from Northeast. His piece
Hmm.
needed a bit of editing. But the funny story is about Sivakami Velingiri.
Okay.
So she sent me 17 drafts of her poem. 17
17
drafts.
draft. Oh my
Yes,
God.
yes.
That's quite a number.
Oh, that was incredible. And she has this very ethnic style of writing where she brings
Okay.
in her own immediate environment very beautifully, and that's what I wanted from her work. So
Okay.
in fact, I kept telling her that, look, talk more about what you see around you, what's happening in the very typical houses that are there in the villages of South India, because that
Uh-huh.
was what was bringing out that that environment which is so specific to that region, and then the loss of that environment which brings on the nostalgia. So that's how
Yeah.
she led us through the entire piece, where she talks about every little thing that goes on in a typical little house there, and then she talks about how that's completely gone, and then the nostalgia that she feels for it. So in the
So
process
it
of
is not
coming,
only, yeah, so it
yeah,
was not only the flavor of the environment, but also the flavor
it's,
of nostalgia, of
yeah,
memories,
yeah, the loss of it that
the
inspired
loss
the
of it.
nostalgia. Yeah,
Right. Right.
right,
So
right.
you accepted the 17th draft?
No, we just kept on engaging with each other, and she
Haha.
herself would keep on editing it. And
Okay.
this anthology was done over a period of a year. I was doing this for a year. So
Okay.
I had
Okay.
enough time to give her that leeway and just ask her to be satisfied. And in fact, she wanted to be completely satisfied before she said yes to giving it to me
Yeah.
in
She
that
she
sense, in the
must be a
final.
perfectionist. She must be a
No,
perfectionist.
she's an amazing lady. She's an absolutely
Yeah, must
amazing
be.
girl.
Yeah. So, Vinita ji, like you are the editor of this collection,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Mhm.
But you are basically a poet at heart, at soul.
Yeah.
So, like authoring a book, is it easier, or editing a collection is easier? Like, what is more rewarding, authoring a book or editing a literary collection?
Well, in terms of rewarding, then I think both the roles are equally rewarding. When you have your
Okay.
own collection or when you bring out an anthology that you've edited, they're both
Mm-hmm.
equally rewarding, I feel.
Okay. Okay.
But what is easier? Then I would say that definitely bringing out your own collection is easier, because that
Perfect.
happens at your own pace and with your
Right.
own level of there's nobody that you have to engage with, and it's like a organic process. You
And it is
internalize
less,
it fully.
yeah, yeah, and it is less time consuming, I guess.
It's not about time, because some people go on and on writing and editing, and they take years to come out with their next collection.
Right.
So more
Right.
important than time, I think it's the independence that one has to go on tweaking your work
Perfect.
and
Right.
showing it
Right.
to friends and colleagues, and then finally,
Mhm. Mhm.
putting it in the form of a book.
Right.
But I would say that editorship also has its own rewards and its own satisfaction, because then you kind of reach out to people whose work you've admired, and
Mhm.
you sort of understand the craft of their poetry when you ask them to bring out a specific kind of a poem for you. And
Mhm.
also, it's a very lovely thing to network with all your friends and colleagues and other poets. and
Mhm.
and besides all that, I think it's important that you highlight a particular issue through an
Mhm.
anthology, and which is really important and urgent. And that sort of gave me a really satisfying feeling. I was very satisfied with that,
Vinita
with the
ji,
message.
yeah,
Yes.
with this answer, my next question will be
Yeah.
inevitably this:
Yeah.
like, you would like to be known as an editor, like as an ace editor, or
Mhm.
as a poet par excellence?
That's a tricky one. That's a very tricky one. But if I had to choose, I would like to be known as a poet.
Right. Right. So, as you said, you would like to be known as a poet. And with this answer, my next question to you would be: you are indeed a long-standing poet. You have four full-length collection of poems to your credit. Vinitaji, what are the challenges of publishing poetry in India? Like you have been published in the US, like from the Silver Line Press,
Finishing line press.
Finishing Line Press. Yeah, I'm sorry. So, like you have your share of experiences of being published overseas, and you have been published in your in your own country. So, what are the challenges that you faced, or that one usually faces when they intend to publish their poetry in our nation?
You know, these challenges were more profound, I would say, about 6 years back.
Hmm.
But in the last 5 or 6 years, I think the poetry scene has sort of evolved, and the publishing scene of the publishing of poetry has become more. It's become more accessible, and
Right.
also it's also become extremely professional, which is something I
Yeah.
really appreciate. And I don't think having one experience of of the US press, the finishing line press, would allow me to generalize across how the publishing process works in the United States.
Hmm.
But I felt that while it was also very nice, very good and very professional, I feel that Indian publishers are no less, and they are open to manuscripts and approaching young poets. And anthologies have been the tone of the year this year. This lockdown has brought out so many anthologies.
Right.
So I think it's become easier for poets to publish themselves, publish their collections, and to approach publishers, and the quality has become really good.
Right. So, Vinitaji, this is almost 3 months old, this collection,
Hmm.
and the initial response has been pretty encouraging.
Wow.
We have sold quite a number of copies overseas. Like in India, we have sold a good number of copies
Okay.
in our country.
I'm
So,
happy to hear.
what are yeah, we are indeed happy as publishers. So, what are your future plans? Like, how would you like to, uh, like you know, propagate your uh, conception, or your work about this climate change?
Yeah. Firstly, when it comes to this book in particular, I would like this book to be translated as
Uh-huh.
far as possible in Indian languages as well as foreign languages.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also thinking right now, it's a very just a nascent thought that's occurred to me, that I might bring out a sequel to this book, Open Your Eyes
Okay.
Part 2. I'm thinking of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And your question was about propagating the issue, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would just.
Propagating the issue as well as your work, that is open your eyes.
Oh, I see. Yeah, like I would like to talk about this book on as many platforms as possible, as many forums as possible. And we
Mm-hmm.
have a very lovely event with Bakul Foundation based in Bhubaneswar, who've organized a poetry contest for the age
Okay.
group of 13 to 30
Mm-hmm.
on climate change. And we'll be announcing the results during that event, which is on the 6th of January. And we will also be reading from the book. And apart from that, I think this book needs to be in as many bookshops as possible, and we need to talk about it. And other people, all the contributors, also need to share it as widely as possible. And I completely appreciate the fact that while poetry is important and the message is important, the book is also about the commerce it brings to the publishers. So I think all of that put together should be like a proper cohesive effort in all directions, so that we have a this book finds its feet for
Mm-hmm.
and travels far and wide in that sense.
Okay. You must have some favorites from this collection, in this collection.
Kiriti, I couldn't hear you. Your voice was
Uh,
breaking.
can you hear me now?
No, no.
Not at all audible.
Can you just say
Hello,
something again?
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, am I audible, Vinita ji?
Not very clearly audible.
Uh, the net. Yeah, there might be some issue with network.
Yeah.
Uh, like, is it
Now
is
I
it
can
far?
hear
Is it
you.
Yeah?
Yes.
Is it better now?
Better.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. You must have some favorites in this collection, Vinita ji. So, could you please read a few of your favorite poems? Starting with your poem, which is in this book.
Okay. When you read from an anthology that you've edited, it's like you've
Mm-hmm.
put together a whole lot of young children together in one
Yeah.
classroom. Hmm? So there are no favorites. All the poems and the prose pieces are, I deeply admire all of them. I'll be happy to read a few, but I would
Mm-hmm.
not call them my favorites because all of them are equally good. But I
All
would just
right.
like to read a few that that resonate very very strongly with me. So
Okay.
that would be the lens through which I'm looking at what I'm reading.
Mhm.
And you asked me to start with my poem. So
Right.
my poem my poem is about water shortage basically. It's
Mhm.
titled Arid. So dry, dryness with cracked heels, barely a turban of shade on the head, dryness that chalks the roots' velvet suit, soil unbuttoned to the waist. I've lost the fingers of my son's rust hand in the earth's ochre crust. The gay girl puppet sways, inappropriate celebration. Orange, sienna, crimson, all one in flat beige. This hardness allows no footprints, accommodates no seeds in its khadi uterus, owns up only to cramped rib cages, xeric nucleus eyes. In my mind, the chicken in the wire coop are saved by dense green intentions. Determined, I scoop out the excess of sunlight from the air. My head has enough dark spaces to take in endless illumination, but nothing changes. Ours stay transfixed in heat. I miss the moistness of rains, its sarangi notes, open fisted generosity, the colors locked in its belly, the yin to the yang of the throat, people cavorting. This shaken expanse breaks every promise that time ever made to life, that of relenting. A sheep with slumped shoulders walks through me. I become a burned hoof, a sore mouth. Rain could ease the ache of this supine topography, rains and rivers and water tables, that brilliant liquid shimmering in dreams, that women would trade with their blood. But clouds too are deserts here, deserts in the skies.
Very profound, I must say.
Thank you, Kiriti. Thank you very much. The next poem that I'd like to read is by Ruth Padel. She also talks about water and how we are wasting this precious resource, not keeping in mind that it's a finite resource. It's going to get over someday, and we should never waste it. So I will read two of her pieces. It's like a series of water poems. I'll just read out two. It's titled Water Wars. Do you know where you are in the Milky Way? Look for the spun bud of the whirlpool, the last struggle of the water butterfly, in toxic red mud, all that is left of your river when they extract the aluminium, which will connect your SIM card with the world. Water connects. You hear the plink of stalactites, iTunes in sea melt, leaks from the conscious mind, a gush from the pericardial sac, and swollen jelly heart. Now it's the water closet, the one truly fortified space where the orator prepares his lecture undisturbed because reality is not quite real enough, till pushed through the mesh of words. That was Ruth Bedell.
You're
The
right.
next poem that I'd like to read is Ranjit's poem.
Mhm.
And this piece is brilliantly written because it's extremely graphic and uses restraint, and yet it also conveys the impact of the Arctic meltdown. It's called Sovereign. Plucking sunsets from the water, the horned sovereign half stamps, half slides across the beach, stopping to dig, claw, rake. What washes up is drilled shale, lost static parsed from gulf to strait, plastic whirls in whose wake gagged dolphins trail scarred humpback whales whose shadows will drift unmoored up thawing glaciers. What washes up is news of the cracked ice, across which a shivering fox is making her way, from Svalbard to Nunavut, leaving her paw prints on frozen currents to a shore stippled with burst nebulae. A shore that, on a compass dizzy with wind scattered directions, she can and can't call home.
Extremely intriguing piece.
Very, very, very beautiful. Another poem that I really, really sort of felt deeply about was Devi Laskar's poem. It's titled
Mhm.
The Last Goddess of Redwood Hill.
Yeah, can
And
you
it's
give me the
about,
page number, please? Page
yes, it's
number.
on page 39.
39. Okay.
Yeah. So this book
Yeah.
is about the chopping of trees, the brutal,
Mhm.
felling of trees and forests.
Right.
The last goddess of Redwood Hill after Gayat al Madun. She was felled by a young man's saw, and I took photographs. So I could remember one day with clarity what I had already witnessed. So I could escape the inevitable fog of forgetfulness, even for a long, sad moment. So I could leave you something, some measure of a dwindling life. She had been balding for years, the last of the sequoia, and it was a moment of silence. I felt her receding pate on that final day. Somehow, they knew the man and the saw were coming. Somehow, they sought to lay their claws tenderly on the spindly arms of the goddess one last time. Just before the last horses forsake us and traipsed through the meadow away from the rising sea, I arrived. On the goddess was a mob of tar, colored feathers, the crow's forms like commas in an unfinished sentence. Their oration repetitive and resentful. I was not alone. Others came and stayed until she was a stack of logs for the taking, until the salt water rushed in to drown her giving stump. She was felled by a young man's saw, and I saved a few of her leaves, evidence of a life that began before mine, a life that ended before ours, among the last days of horses and crows and sweet green meadows.
This is a touching piece, to say the least.
Very touching, and the way she's personified a tree and,
Yeah.
treated it like a goddess, it's extremely beautiful.
Right.
Do we have time for one more
Yeah, of
piece?
course. Of course. Of course.
So Priya Sarukai Chabria's piece in the book is extremely interesting because
Mhm.
um, it's a blend of poetry and prose, although it comes in the
Okay.
prose section.
Yeah. Can we have the
Her
page number, please?
137.
137. Okay.
So what Priya has done is that she's formatted her writing like a examination question paper,
Right, right.
and it's a very very interesting read. And I will just read out the beginning and a little
Hmm.
poem also, which is a part of the piece. So,
Yeah.
why was the term Mother Earth used across literatures? In Hindi and Tamil literatures, Patal and Patala, respectively, refer to the underworld. What
Hmm.
kind of creatures were said to inhabit these areas? Why
Yeah.
was the why was the Rigvedic Vagdevi, goddess of articulation of all life, implored to let the hem of your skirt sweep over me? Why is light associated with revelation in all literatures? And then she has a beautiful poem, which is also a part of that examination paper. It goes
Yeah.
like this.
Can you just say the fifth one?
Okay,
At least like there are 15 points, I think, I guess. So you can read at least the first five or six.
okay, all right.
It's like a very interesting piece.
Very, very interesting piece
Yeah,
indeed. Very,
yeah,
very interesting piece. Okay, so let me read out the fifth point.
yeah.
Throughout the subcontinent, forests deemed sacred groves were not allowed to be felled. The widely implemented concept of restorative groves is its current version. 2. Fossil images of trilobites, traffic jams in 480 million year old oceans, reveal migration is intrinsic to life. It's such a wonderful observation.
Yeah.
The koala was not always an endangered species. Their fingerprints are so indistinguishable from humans that they are, on occasion, confused at a crime scene.
Hmm.
Early medical texts recommended deer as suitable companions for disturbed maidens due to their gentleness, which was regarded as an offshoot of the animal's virtual color blindness to all hues except blue.
This is very interesting.
Very, very interesting indeed. Fungi warp our sense of time as we cannot accurately date when they are born or die.
Right.
Deep time mappings of the Antarctic revealed 3% of the ice in these glaciers was penguin urine.
Hmm.
Climate change documents of the early 21st century state a cyclone would diminish within a week after landfall. Macaques were noticed gazing at sunsets and similar spectacles while ignoring distractions like fruiting trees, which indicated they were wonderstruck and lost in awe.
Yeah.
The Cuckoo Agenda was the name given by ultra nationalists of rich nations to climate refugees.
Yeah. Can we now go to the poem?
Okay, so here's the poem.
Hmm.
It's on page 140.
Right,
It's titled Spirit of Water. Invocation, Spirit of Water.
right.
Make me dew that touches all without distinction. Like snowflakes, let my perfect structures yield to the melt of being. As an underground river flowing during drought, make me draw from several secret sources, sweet and salt estuarine. Let differences mingle in my blood. Tidal courage, I call upon you to return after the ebb. Spirit of water, give me hope. Print on me oceans covered with sky. When fiery fissures open, remind me of life. Fill my marrow with glacial ice that cuts rock to nourish springs. Add one more wish to this. Make me a mountain lake, calm and deep, that reflects light.
this particular poem, I don't know, like somehow like exerts a calming effect.
Very, very calming. It's almost spiritual poetry, I would say.
Yeah, yeah,
And then she's observed these amazing things that nature does to draw out the best of itself.
you're right.
It's an incredibly beautiful, soul stirring piece, really.
You're right.
Yeah, very, very calming.
So, Vinita ji, we are 40 minutes up.
Okay,
Uh, and with this, we should come to the end of the session.
okay.
Thank you so much for being with us, for editing Open Your Eyes, an anthology on climate change, poetry, and prose. Thank you once again for allowing us to publish your work, and which allowed us in turn to publish so many writers across the globe.
Yeah,
And readers are friends and buyers of literature. Let me tell you, Open Your Eyes, the collection is available on Hawakal website, which is www.hawakal.com, and the collection is available on Amazon across all the portals of Amazon, both in India and abroad. Friends in Delhi, let me tell you, this collection is available on the bookshop Jorhat and
Jorbag.
Jorbag, yeah.
Jorbag.
And simultaneously, the collection is available with the Variety Book Depot, which is in Connaught Place, Delhi. So, Variety
It's
Book Depot,
wonderful.
they are primarily a distributor that distributes books to other bookshops across the city, even in other states in India. But if you are away from bookshop and if you find yourself comfortable buying books online, then hawakal.com or Amazon, these are two important platforms where you can buy Open Your Eyes. Please be with us, and we need your support, your blessings, and of course, unconditional good wishes. Thank you so much. Vinita ji, thank you once again.
Thank you, Kiriti. It's been very special talking to you because you've been my publisher, and everybody go buy this book, please. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.